Well, you probably knew it was going to happen. I was going to have a shot at looking at this woofer, which is all locked up. So I have actually managed to make one fully functional tweeter now. So I'd love to find another one of these, and if I could, rather than just having one working driver now out of 6, I have 2, because remember we've still got this woofer, which is good. Now I've got to give it a go. So what I'm doing is I'm releasing the spider on the back of this driver, and to do that, if you use a knife, use the blunt part of it to work your way around. If you use the sharp part, you'll just cut into it. So blunt knife, just work around it gently, and you should be able to release the spider. It's always handy if you have to do this and you can keep part of it glued, because then you'll just keep the alignment. So all I'm doing is breaking the bond there, because underneath that, if you can see, are some bolts. And I can also see the voice coil, and it doesn't look bad. So I'm hoping I can unbolt the magnet structure from the back and realign this and get this woofer working again, because I can't find a second-hand one of these for less than 100 quid, and that is not an option. So I've released the spider now, so I'm going to see if I can get push that up and get a socket in there, because I can't take the cone out, it's locked in there, so I've got to work with this spider that's in there. But if I can get the socket set in there and undo that, fingers crossed. If seeing a speaker driver butchered like this worries you, look away. Look away. Right, how many are there? 3. Come on. I don't know, actually, I think we might be welded in there, you know. There's quite a bit, I don't know if you can see that, of what I would say is varnish from the windings that's pulled down there. Might be wrong. Right, so they're the little bolts. So they're literally just going into the first plate there. I think this is all welded together. I think that voice coil, while it's measuring okay in terms of DC resistance, I think she's welded in there. Sometimes though, in the past, if I've got them apart, I go around the winding carefully with a Scotch cloth, like I say, if the DC resistance is still good, and then I spray it with some lacquer to seal it back up again, and lo and behold, we kind of brought it back to life. I don't know whether that's possible with this. Yeah, that's overheated. That's welded itself on there. Yeah, what a shame. Come on. Nope. That is well and truly melted in there. What a shame. Never mind. Alright, so this is the really big gap that's opened up in this cabinet. So what I'm going to do is glue and clamp this and then once that's glued and dried and all that lot, I can then start looking at the rest of the repairs on this cabinet. Yeah, I think I'm going to try and do something with it, probably then vinyl wrap it, and I don't know what we're going to do with the drivers yet, but let's get this clamped. Right, so clamped up, glued up, so let's see how this dries, and like I say, once this is done we can then look at clamping and gluing the rest of this cabinet. The other one isn't so bad, so I'm hoping, whilst we can't salvage any of the veneer or anything, that does mean I can fill them, sand them, spray the backs, and then vinyl wrap them. So I think we can turn these into a good looking cabinet. It's almost not worth doing, really. I should probably just make new ones, but yeah, I've got a plan. It's either that or we light the bonfire with it, and that's probably a bit of a waste. So yeah. So I'm just removing these pieces of aluminium, angle aluminium, and they're just pinned in with little nails. So eventually when we put this back on, we'll use some really small self-tapping screws through there, because that's just, well, they've obviously lasted for 50 odd years, but be nice to have those really held in properly with some screws. So yeah, so what I do to get it off is just carefully just wobble it backwards and forwards, because you don't want to bend it. And as you can see, this nails are popping up, and then eventually you can get some nail pliers on them and pull them out, because you don't want to bend this, and I want to reuse this because I like that look with the cover between these two bits at the top and bottom. So yeah, I want to keep these. Right, so as usual, I always run around the inside with some Unibond, and you know, around all the corners. If they're going to leak air, that's probably where they're going to leak from, and yeah, it just helps stabilize the cabinet a bit more. So yeah, another bit done. Right, so this one now has a load of wood filler all over the corners and bits and pieces, so when that's gone off I can sand it back, and hopefully we'll have some nice sharp corners again. And yeah, and we'll see what we can do in the way of wrapping this and making it look like something. And then when the glue's gone off on that, I'll obviously fill around that as well. Yeah, it's a right old mess, that one, at the moment. So hopefully it'll turn out alright. More wobbly cam, I'm afraid. Yeah. Right, so all sanded back after being filled, and you know, we've got nice sharp corners again now, as you can see. So down there we had quite a knock. Incidentally, I'm just making some stands for someone. So yeah, we've got the cabinets nice and structurally sound again now. We've sorted out that corner. It's got a nice sharp corner to it again now. So all glued back together, all filled, all sanded back. So the next process is to wrap these. I don't know if you can see up the top there. All good. So yeah, so we're getting there. I've sourced 2 drivers, which you'll see later. We've already got one 1300 tweeter that's good, and I think I've sourced another one, and I've done my repairs on the super tweeters, which have worked out really well. So yeah, coming together. Right, so this is what I'm doing with these super tweezers, because they are both knackered, and a good second-hand pair of these is £100, and I'm not doing that. But what I've got is these Dayton Audio 8-ohm mini tweeters, and these will play up to 25 kilohertz quite easily. So that's what I'm going to use. So what I've done is carefully ground out the rivets here, and that allows the whole magnet structure to come off the back, so you're left with this ring, and then that conveniently fits inside there. So I'm going to clean this back, spray this black, and then obviously I'll have to impedance correct this for the crossover, but that's going to be our new super tweeter, and I think that's going to work really well. Right, so this is what I've done. I've gone through the front with some nice Allen bolts, and that's allowed me to centralise this, and then I've glued it in as well. So I think that's probably turned out pretty well. Yeah. So there we go, both finished. Right, so as you knew, or as you know, one of the woofers from these DM4s had packed up, been damaged in transit. I tried to correct it but couldn't. So what I've managed to find, because I couldn't find a single Bextrine driver from these, what I have found though is a matched pair of the paper cone version. So they're identical, DC resistance, everything else, but they have a paper cone, so they physically fit. They will probably marry up with a crossover, obviously when we test them properly and see whether this performs any differently, which it will do. I would imagine the Bextrine is probably a bit better in the mid-range, but I'm quite a fan of a paper cone, so this is kind of the best we can do, and it might actually turn out to be better. Who knows? But anyway, they are basically identical, apart from the fact we have a paper cone. I'm sure the magnet structure, voice coil, suspension, spider, everything is the same. They certainly feel the same. So yeah, time will tell, but that's where we are. Right, so just testing both of these woofers, and this one is really graunchy, so we have a problem. Can you hear that? So let's compare it to the other. Okay, the other one, very clean. That's annoying. Back to square one. Right, I'm beginning to give up with eBay. I bought a second-hand HF 1300 listed as for a DM4, and this is what's rolled up. So it is an HF 1300. You've probably seen it in that kind of setup before, and I'm pretty sure I can take the cover plate off of this, and I've got tons of spares, and I thankfully have a spare bezel. There's the one that we tested earlier that's working, so I'm pretty sure I can take the cover off that, put that on it, and we'll be, the backs are a different colour, but I'll test this to make sure everything is okay, and then we can put that on there. Right, so we'll give it a quick resistance test. Sorry, you're the wrong way around here, really. Make sure this is the 16 ohm version apparently. So I'd imagine its DC resistance is probably about 13 ohms, something like that. 11, 11.8. Yep, okay, that's good. And we'll whack some signal through it as well, just to make sure all is good. That really comes to life at about 1500 hertz. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Good, good, good. Right. So you do have to be a bit careful with the lead wires coming out. On the back here there's two little slots. You see the screw holes will only line up one way to let those cables through. So you've got to be a bit mindful of that. Well, I don't really want to use these screws. So hopefully I've still got the old ones. Yeah. Good. Right, we now have two HF1300s for our DM4s. See, this one has tags on there with the lead wires. These we've got fly lead, so yeah, I'll have to do something a bit different on this one. But yeah, there we go. Dinner. The problem we're going to have is on the original one we've got the inserts for the nuts, sorry, the bolts, and we haven't got that on this, so I'm going to have to fit some on there. I might also have some solder tags I can put on these little holes that were already there. Yeah, okay, cool. Right, so the other thing I've been doing is working away on the crossovers. I've taken out the original caps that were in there. In fact, let me show you those. So that was these beauties. So they're all glued in there. And actually, most of them were okay. These are an early poly cap. They've got really, really low ESR values, in fact next to nothing, so hence why we're using polys again to replace them. Otherwise, if we started using electrolytics, which is not what was in them, then we'd be causing ourselves an issue. So I just needed a few 3.3s, which I've now got. So I've got one to put in there and there for the woofer circuit. The woofer was made up of a 4.7 and a 3.3 to make an 8, not a single 8. So I'm doing the same, and we had a 3.3 here, which I think was on the tweeter circuit. And then we had a little 0.868 and a 1 on the super tweeter circuit. So the other thing I want to do is take these plugs out and actually solder cables on. So what I should be able to do is desolder the plug, and in the 6 holes I'll be left with, just put cables through there. Beauty. Yeah, these speakers have really kicked and screamed. So much has gone wrong with them. Trying to get parts and fix things. Yeah, been a nightmare. Right, there we go. Looking a bit better. Looking a bit better. I know these inductors are orientated poorly. We wouldn't do that. That's what's on here. The whole speaker has been voiced with them cross-talking slightly. So I'm not going to move them. We'll just leave them as they are. And these are good air core inductors. We do have an iron core on the woofer, which is to be expected. But yeah, not too bad really. Right, excellent. So let's tackle these plugs next. Right, so the plug goes in that way, and we have brown and blue, so positive in, negative in. I think that brown was the woofer. Yep, just double check on the circuit. Yep, positive for the woofer. And then we've got this blue here, which I think that was the positive because it's out of phase for both the tweeters. And we've got the white one, so we're going the middle. Yeah, so the white, that one and that one. Yep, so the white is the super tweeter. That's the super tweeter. And then that one is the tweeter. Just double check. To there. Yeah, because they're also limiting the how high it can play as well. Right, okay, good. Now we know what's what. Okay, that's one done. Crappy old plug. I might have to make these holes slightly bigger. This wire I use is probably a bit thicker than that. Let's have a look. Yep. Just don't push because you'll push the track out the back. Just use the weight of the drill, nothing else. Right, see if that fits in there now. Yep, just going to have to be careful that I don't have any strands come out, otherwise they could short out easily. So we will glue this as well at the end. Right, good. Okay. Do these one at a time. If you twist the wire as it's going in so your strands don't unravel, that works quite well as well. Okay, right, so that's our, stretch that over, that's our positive and negative in. You've got enough there to do the other one, so tie those together. Yeah, so there's one cable coming out of this that goes to the woofer, the tweeter and the super tweeter, which is a bit crazy, and that comes out of there, so we'll do that last. So we had a white cable which is in the middle, and that was our super tweeter, so this one's long enough. We've got some white. Yep, okay. Right. So the tweeter was grey. I'm going to use black, green as well. Yeah, so I think what I'll do is use green for the tweeter. And then I can use red for the woofer and one long black to pick up all the negatives. Okay, so super tweeter up the top, tweeter. You've stolen my cutters. There they are. And then we put our common negative in next. It's going to be black. What I might do is pick up another negative off this board just to make life easier rather than having one cable daisy chaining between them all. Right. So I think what I'll do, let's stretch that over, is I'm going to use this to pick up my tweeters. So we'll knock that together. So that's our negative and our two positives for our tweeter and super tweeter. And I think what I'll do, I'll get another negative in there somewhere. Let's go in there. Okay, good. And then we'll put another red in there, and then that'll be our woofer taken care of. Right, so there are woofer cables. So input, woofer, negative for the tweeter and super tweeter, tweeter. Job done. So I'll just clean the back of this off with some rubbing alcohol and then do the other.